What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing well. My name is Lamont, been a full-time trader for 7 years now, part of the Chart Guys team for about half that time, where I head up our swing report and our futures room. And we do other stuff too, but that's primarily it. In this video, we will give you an update on some of our hype sectors and the overall market, hit you with some trade ideas, and that's it. Let's get into it, eh? All right, so very notable. This is much more of a blow off top kind of a scenario than what looked like that what happened over here and over here. It's a really high volume, a gap into the strength, a gap into strength, and then a huge blow off top to take off two prior lows is very notable. That being said, you still have to call it for what it is. As long as this local daily demand zone is still supportive of price, it's still not that bad. Structurally, no problem. And then on the weekly time frame, technically they can come all the way back here, and if they can hold this, it's really also not that big of a problem. Kind of like here, right? You have this sideways trade, rip up, retrace 40%, and then you bounce 35%. That's more than enough space for us to work with. Even here, when you revisit it here, when you revisit it here, right? This move down is a 58% drawdown, but this low is right into this area of demand, and you get a very nice 30% bounce out of it. And then once you hook up back, you trade through this guy, right? And then pop back above it, the higher low is there for you. So bigger picture, no red flags. But on the daily chart, very hard to ignore that this blow off top. Okay, so space for a daily higher low, anything over 834.17 is going to be good for one. Very aggressive operators, you're still looking for plays here, right? Like you're still looking for like this. I think we had an old trade zone that's probably gone now. It's down here, I think. But obviously with this blow off top, let's want to change it up a little bit. So this is a very reasonable trade zone, but I would not scale into this personally. Like I would prefer to see a move come into it, right? Well, best case scenario from here would be this. Come down in here, crack this point of control, 71.91. Don't see follow through down to the value area low at like 780 or whatever. Move back over it. Okay, we can buy that, pass back over, throw our stop under the low, chop it up no later than 823.94, and then here and here. That's how I prefer to do it. But this is a very reasonable trade zone. This is basically if you hold these two POCs and they can't trade through this high volume area, well then we're probably looking for balance like this. Okay, so that's pretty much it for NVDA. Lots of space for a weekly higher low, even above this little rinky-dink one here, 662.48. But again, what I primarily care about is all of this. Okay? On the way down, we have just a few steps, right? Here's a little bit of balance, here's a little bit of balance, here's a little bit of balance. These are all demand zones that were created on the way up. You can see how on the way up, actually there's this one over here as well. So we'll just watch these higher volume areas. If the sellers fail to come back down to this big guy over here, bigger picture, we'll still go with the buys. Okay. SMCI, so did not really have as much of a blow up top kind of a situation as NVDA, so potentially a bit of a laggard. We shall see. I'm going to kill this for now. I don't really care about this. For SMCI, there's still plenty of space for a daily higher low. Anything over 976.10 will be good for one. As long as this gap remains unfilled, then these buyers are going to be very comfortable. And we can mark up this as a bit of sideways trade here. And we can say as long as these buyers are holding over 860.25, even if the sellers close the gap, they'll still be looking just fine. Weekly time frame, looking for a higher low as well. Little rinky-dink one here at 692.50. And we can say the same thing about SMCI. This thing can fall at 50%, more than that. 70%, and structurally still be okay. So nobody knows what's going to come, but we can, we'll stay open-minded to anything. So in the short term, if you're looking for plays off of SMCI, best case scenario then would be to close this gap, pop under this POC, or fail to pop under this POC, pop under the POC, move back over. We can look to buy that, pass back over. If you don't come down to the point of control, right, we fail to test it, and then move back over the value area high, you can look to buy that as well. If we're going to stop under here, and then just try to get to this next high volume area here, next high volume area here. Okay? So that's it. SMCI doesn't look that bad. So NVDA, that's a bit of a red flag. Right, that's a very high volume situation. Take out two prior lows, but SMCI does not look that bad. So we'll see if there's potentially a laggard situation in SMCI. So Bitcoin, still no weakness in Bitcoins. Bitcoins I think it did not come into our trade zone again, right? Is that right? There was a more aggressive one. Or not. I could have swore we had a more aggressive one. Either way, although it didn't come into our trade zone, probably looking for a back test of this guy, you'll notice that this low is pretty much no acceptance under this structure, right? So buying the pass back over the point of control of this guy would have been reasonable, but also just a nearly a perfect value area high back test from this 1116 to 12.2 structure from all the way back here. That's this guy. So flirting with, it's already broken to all-time highs. So new record highs. And as of right now, it's based for a daily higher low, 59224.68. The strength of crypto right now, and in particularly the some of the tokens, the strength that's still seen in these really high risk assets makes it kind of hard for me to put that much weight into like the weakness that we saw on Friday. It's definitely notable, but as of right now, with Bitcoin still flirting with all-time highs and again, those AI tokens still ripping. I think there were the meme coins were still ripping as well. It's kind of hard to like take sellers, bigger picture sellers too seriously when these super high risk assets are, still very strong. So I think that's something to be considerate of, when you're making your market decisions. And so that's pretty much it. And although, although we didn't get a trade zone here, if you guys really want like I guess the full chart guys experience or whatever, we do a ton of plays in the chat room. Last week was very notable because we had that halt, the NYCB halt situation, which I'll talk a bit more about when when we talk about no, we can talk about it now. So one of Jungle Funk's one of Joey's novel plays is capitulation play with intraday halts. And so, trading is a team game. I have these queued up over here. We had Charcal Lori was talking about how the halts were, coming like one after another. And that's helpful, right? Because Funko that's one of his edges. Although I think in this situation, Funk was streaming. And so I don't think he really, here we go, going for a live. So he made his novel play on that live. And here's a thread about some of the other folks who are doing it as well. And then in the thread later, when the halt it becomes undone, well, people are posting their entries here. Laurie, I think, got a taste as well. Funk crushed it. These are his orders, right? So he did this live. I think he started it live and then continued talking about it afterwards. So Laurie got a piece. Lots of people got a piece. Shout out to Ben. He's been bouncing around the room, sharing a lot of very helpful information. And I think, Milenki, I just spoke to you today, got some calls that were 600%, but ended up being 80%. Either way, really great. Like I only see you every week, so I can only give you these these trade zones. Sometimes they'll work, these like framework trade zones or whatever. Sometimes they'll work out better than not. But if you really want to see how we put it all together, then you got to come see us in the chat room because there's a lot of stuff going on there. And then with the crypto, again, it didn't come into our trade zones. These are all conservative trade zones. I can only see you once a week. But I also did make a play in the alt space here, and that was back here on this pass back over this POC here. On this pass back over, right, I saw this dump down, and then I saw this move back over the point of control. So this is the concept that I'm always talking to you guys about, right? Like, okay, this is serious selling. It's 30% off the highs, fair enough, but they don't even come back down to this prior high, right? So this is exactly what I'm talking about with NVDA and SMCI, right? In the bigger time frames. They can dump all the way down to here. If they fail to come down there, that would be very notable, right? Same thing with SMCI, it's the same deal. If they drill, but they can't get back down to the next area of balance, they don't prove much. RNDR was the same situation on a smaller time frame, right? This is a daily chart, okay? And so if they don't get back down to this prior high, sellers, right? And then we move back over this guy. This is a blue sky bull then, right? Because you're flirting with more blue sky breakout. So, yeah, come check us out in the chat room if you are interested. I think I walked through a lot of that. I mean, there wasn't really that much to walk through, honestly. Yeah, that was pretty much it, right? We talked about some strategy for targeting later. I chopped it up at like $9 or whatever, and then that was it. I'm interested in ads. So anyway, check us out in the chat room if you are, interested in hanging out with a bunch of traders who are always sharing ideas. And shout out to the futures. I mean, to the full-time traders gang. They're killing it. Shout out to Tim. Honestly, Tim was in here as well. helping out with this halts, having some fun. And then, yeah, tagging Funk in there, letting him know it's a team game. We play as like a team. So anyway, check us out. Links in the description below. You already know. So Ethereum also daily higher low has been set here at 3205, flirting with all-time highs as well, making its way up there, up until key supply. So let's see. The next area here is 4017.56 should be their objective, and then 4116.26. And then if they crack that, it's really just this. That's it. That's it. So, you know, flirting with blue sky breakout as well is Ethereum. So this little guy sitting from 2021 11/7. Oops. To what was it? Let's see. What? This fella is really the last little bit of supply sitting before all-time high. And so if they're currently testing this one, the buyers are currently testing this one, you can see the dashed green line here. So if they can find acceptance over this structure, they should be trying to come here next. And over here, it's just blue sky. So buyers look totally fine here. Lots of space for another daily higher low to be set. Anything over 3205 will be good for one. You know, that being said, this is setting up for another bit of a potential liquidation break, just like this was just a liquidation break. And you can see when this setup, you know, is presenting itself when you have a lot of candles with lows very close to each other. Typically, what will happen then when you have a lot of small candles with lows close to each other, what do the small candles suggest, right? The small candles suggest that, okay, these are green candles, so the buyers are still advancing, but because they're so small, they're not advancing so well. Higher highs are not really seeing that much follow through, but momentum style traders are still probably playing this momentum. They probably have stops here, they have stops here, they have stops here. So if these stops do trigger over here, because the stops, the next stops are pretty close by, you can get a situation where you get cascading stops. But as always, if they don't come back, if the selling does not come back to the last area of the breakout, then it creates no change. So now we can move this over here, 3521.99. If 3521.99 is not broken from the sellers and they can't find acceptance under it, the buyers are going to be very comfortable. Okay. CCJ. So CCJ, this one is being so tricky. So they should be trying to come back down here, 38.87, as long as this value area high 42.31 is resistance. But these lower high, lower lows had these sellers stalled right here at this prior high, which then had me thinking, okay, if they break over this value area high, then they should be trying to come here. So I actually made a play for this in the chat room as well. I was unfortunately streaming on Friday, so I couldn't get a good exit. You can see I have my alert set here to exit it, but unfortunately I missed this exit, which is unfortunate because those calls were up like more than 100%, and I didn't chop them up. But it's fine, you know. It's part of the gig, being a chart guys, coach or whatever. You know, sometimes we're streaming, sometimes we're occupied. It's just part of the game. So at this point now, certainly that's a big red flag. If they do happen to make new lows under 39.77, it's right back to eyeing 38.87. And that is pretty much it. So weekly lower highs potentially being set here. Weekly lower high potentially being set at 44.47. Got to break 40.70 next week to confirm that weekly lower high. And if they do crack 38.87, then it's back to eyeing this guy, this value area low here, at 33.25. So we shall see. I'll probably just let those calls go to zero. They're March 22nd, so a couple weeks on them. They're 43s. That's such a bummer, but it's fine. I did get a nice trade, but during the morning stream, but still, that's like quite unfortunate. Anyway, that's pretty much it for CCJ. Moving on to TAN. So TAN came into our trade zone, got the first target here. I know a bunch of folks got it, so that's cool. Appreciate the emails, and I think someone in our Slack community mentioned it as well. And so now at this point, if you did use this trade zone, your stop should be no later than under 41.44. The more acceptance that these buyers can find over 45.21, the more likely they'll move up to our next target, which is just the value area low of this big guy over here. One second. What's going on? Okay, forget it. Anyway, so that's pretty much it, right? So basically, right now, all this price action has been dictated by this supply and this demand, right? All of this so far. And so if we continue to see higher highs over 48.24, should be a test of 51.70 in the cards. Failure to do so and new lows, eyes on 39.98. Okay. Space for a daily higher low, anything over 42.35 is going to be good for one. The weekly time frame as well, just set this weekly higher low. So if you made that play down here, right, that is potentially the weekly higher low. If they can break over 48.24, that'd be a weekly higher low and higher high. Hasn't happened since way back here in December. Okay, and so if we do set that weekly higher low and higher high here, then that's also potentially a monthly lower low that doesn't see fall through. So this has the potential to be a very good location, and we shall see. Okay. Moving on to MSOs. So MSOs, this should be a stop out now, I believe. Hang on. Yes, so this is technically officially a stop out. And I would just leave it stopped out because it gave us the bounce from the trade zone that we were expecting. If these buyers were going to stay strong, they should have held over here. But they needed to find acceptance over this guy, right? And particularly, they needed to get back over this prior low over here that they just fell down from. So an inability to do so, obviously a red flag. Weekly time frame now is... technically you did set a little rinky-dink lower high and lower low. It's not much of a pivot for a lower high, but technically that's a price action lower high and lower low. The monthly time frame, you do still have a lot of space for a monthly high low to be set over 4.92. And so it sure seems like the Democrats are like turning up the heat as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're waiting to drop it like closer, like they drop some news closer to it's all speculation, right? But I wouldn't be surprised if, like, there were machinations in place to have it set up closer to the elections, to keep this hype going. So we're still, like 8 months out. So stay tuned. Me personally, I still just in the OGI. Well, I guess that's outside of the scope of this video, but the trade that I follow Dan in. So for MSOs, I wouldn't be too interested in MSOs until they can find acceptance back over this guy. You can be aggressive down here again. Like if there's no follow through, here, let me just kill this again. So if there's no follow through under 8, right, like tomorrow or Monday, if you get a strong open, you could make a play to 852, but you would definitely want to chop it up quick because if you do lower low under this point of control at $8, that's a big red flag because then we should expect to move back down to here, just like all this price action throughout here. So that is pretty much it. Space for a daily lower high to be set under 8.93, potentially setting one here at 8.18 if they can break 7.87 on Monday. All right, so eyes on that for MSOs. And that's pretty much it. I'm still interested for that monthly higher low. I'm just going to be a little bit patient here. First step is get back over 8.52. If these buyers can't get back over 8.52, they create no meaningful change. All right. Okay, so getting into the boring overall market. So the SPY came into our trade zone picture perfect, just one fill, but came right into the trade zone, ran right to the target. That target, again, was just based off of projections. The R1 for the month at 517.54. So pop and drop over that R1 is notable. So if we do see a lower low, then eyes on the pivot here at 500.67. From a pure price action perspective, that 500.67 also makes a lot of sense because that 500.67 is pretty much this high volume area over here, which is just pretty much from these two sessions. Okay. So the real test right now for these buyers, technically they should be up here. This was another daily breakout. And so if the buyers can stay over 510.13, that would keep them absolutely the most confident. But if they can hold over 507.81, they'll still be pretty confident because 507.81, let me hide this, it's easier to see. Because 507.81 is pretty much the point of control of this local demand zone. So as long as these buyers are holding over this local demand zone, then they're doing just fine. Space for a higher low over 504.91 as well. And that's pretty much it. I don't really love a new trade zone, honestly. Like I think this is still a pretty reasonable one, right? I don't love... Pretty much I would only ever consider scaling on the first attempt because the first attempt, fortune favors the bull. Very often you'll still have those like late location buyers who are still interested. But the next time you come back to it, I would be a little bit more wary of it. So it's still a very reasonable trade zone. But again, I would prefer to see like a break under here, no acceptance, move back over, buy that, throw our stop under here, chop it up no later than there. All right. So that's pretty much it for SPY. there's a lot of space for a weekly time for a weekly higher low as well. So even if these buyers, the sellers, I mean, do get the job done, trade through this area of demand over here, if they can crack that, that would be a, that's really their first objective. So for the sellers to press the issue from here, they need to trade under this guy, find acceptance under it, hold the back test of this point of control. Don't allow acceptance over 507.81, and then trade through this guy. Then we'll really know, they mean business this time, okay? Because that hasn't happened in a really long time. Not since here. Not since here has that happened, where you balance, break down, back test through this prior area of balance, and then trade through the next area of balance. And even then, you still saw good relief bounce, and it wasn't until you found more acceptance under this guy again that, they were really pressing the advance here. Okay, so we're looking out for this thing first. So right now, we're pretty much in here. The current market looks like this. You broke out, new high, no follow through, came back down, tested the lows of balance. It's pretty much what just happened here. Right? You break out, no follow through. That's what actually happened here. Break out, no follow through, test the lows of balance, higher high, and now they're right back to needing to crack this guy again for confidence, the sellers. Okay, so that's pretty much it. For the Qs, came into our trade zone, bounced, gave you good opportunity to get risk free, but they have problems here. Higher high, lacking follow through. Test of the R1 for the month, no follow through on that as of yet. And so we could honestly mark up this whole guy as one big area of balance. I had it marked up as separate ones, and they're going to tell you similar stories because this is where the high volume, we'll leave it as that. So we can watch this guy, but also we should watch this guy. So, wow, all right. It was on my other chart. I guess I didn't sync it globally, but so this is very notable, right? Right now, the low of the Friday was pretty much right at the value area high of this key daily demand zone. So if these sellers can't get back down to 437.51, they do very little proving. So it's the same deal here. Now they need to do this, trade through this guy, lower high, and then crack this guy, and then again we'll know they mean business. But even then, a trade zone for the next week or so this is pretty reasonable. Again, I don't want to blindly scale into it, but bottom fishing off of this area, pretty reasonable. This give it a second, it should update this volume profile. There we go. Something like this, pretty reasonable. You can even come all the way back down into this guy, like such. And the R multiple would still be like 2. So something like that, basically a play to stay balancing within this structure over this guy. If they can defend here, then they should be chopping around in here. So something like this makes a lot of sense. Essentially would be play for a potential monthly higher low, I guess, not weekly. Maybe not. We'll see. I think this is a reasonable bottom fishing play. Okay. For the Qs, DIA, same deal. Came into the trade zone, but got stuffed at local supply. Bit of a red flag. Bigger picture, if you made a bounce play, chopped it up, you throw a stop under here, more conservative zone, we can just move this down to like this. Something like this makes a lot of sense. Okay, space for a weekly higher low. Anything over 380.46 going to be good for one. Daily time frame, lower high set at 390.42. And so it's all about this guy. If they trade through 386.72 and find acceptance under it, then eyes on 383.12. They can trade through this guy, then eyes on this guy down here. It's a very, very clear support. All right. IWM. So IWM, they are finding acceptance over the value area high of this structure, the 113 to 422 structure. Is a very, very key structure. You'll notice the low of the day did not come back to backtest the value area high of it. So that's quite notable to me. If they can continue to find acceptance over 205.46, that's the best case scenario for these IWM buyers, because the more acceptance they can find over that, that means that they are trying to find acceptance over this guy. This guy is what made all of these lows for all of this big balance, and also flip into resistance here. So next week, eyes on the battle for 207.61. You can see how it came into play recently as well. So I bet if we zoomed in, you'll see a lot of battling around it. Yep, battle for it, a battle for it. So next week, if these buyers can find acceptance back over 207.61, that will have bigger picture implications. If you fall back down under 205.46, it's right back to eyeing 199.26 again, just like here. All right, just like here, just like there. Okay, so potentially setting a daily higher low as well over 205.80. Got to break over 210.41 in order to confirm it next week. Weekly time frame, lots of space for a higher low. Anything over 190.06 would be good for them. Alrighty. The dollar. So the dollar, I believe, cracked our trade zone. I think it's flirting with it. Either way, this is a red flag for these dollar buyers. So gave you a good bounce here, got to the target, gave you a good bounce here, but didn't get to the target. So I believe we were talking about how that was a bit of a red flag for them to fail coming back up to test this key area of supply. But this is good for the asset buyers, right? If the dollar continues to weaken, if we see lower lows next week, it's all about this guy now. So if you do take this trade and if you do get stopped out, I don't really love it here. At this point now, you're pretty much in no man's land. So over here, playing for continuation to come up here, I think that makes more sense. But if they're going to trade through this structure, then the odds of them coming back down here are pretty good. And that's pretty much been what's been happening this whole time. So personally, I would just be conservative and wait to see if they can come down here if you want to be a dollar buyer. Or, again, you're probably getting sick of hearing this. If they trade through this structure, don't see follow through, move back above the point of control of it, okay, we can buy that, throw our stop under here, and then target like this high first, right? Basically the highs of this structure. Okay, so that's it. Bigger picture, we're probably just looking at more balance for the dollar. Oops. Weekly lower high is set. Monthly lower high is set at 104.875. So if they can break 100.320 from here, that'd be a monthly lower high and lower low. And although technically there wasn't really much follow through on it before, now things have kind of changed. You've used up some buying power here, used up some buying power here. So we shall see. And then finally for the VIX, just hanging out. It's still pretty low volatility kind of situation. We should be eyeing it. If the sellers aren't going to really press the issue, this VIX should spike. And if we don't see the sellers press the issue next week and SPY continues to rally, and we do see the VIX rally as well, that's also going to be a good indication that people are starting to hedge their bets against the market. So that is it. So if you made it this far, appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you for sharing some of your time and energy with me. If you could help us out with a like and subscribe, we would very much appreciate that. Otherwise, I hope to see y'all soon. Link in description for swing report and our community. The link for the swing report and our community in the description below. It's kind of funny. I'm so bad at this part, right? But the technical stuff, no problem. I can walk you through the trade, but I can't describe our community. Anyway, that is pretty much it. Thank you again, and I'll see y'all soon. Farewell.